comet Ison is probably the size of a small sun, or at least the size of, like, larger than Jupiter. Because if you put Jupiter on this picture, you would barely be able to see it. The sun is many times larger than Jupiter. And that comet is practically engulfing the entire size of the sun there. Now, I'm not saying it's as large as the sun, because a lot of that is reflection. And if you look at the tail at the very end, and see how far it is from one end of the tail to the other? That tail is so many millions of miles wide that it's just unbelievable. And the reason that there's two tails rather than one, this is baffling science. The reason is, friends, this thing has 25, 30, 35 different objects in the core. This isn't just one piece. The largest of these pieces is bigger than the Earth.
Hi, my name is Victor Finneran from the Aerospace here in Cape Town, South Africa. A lot of people would like to know something about why an extraterrestrial presence would want to farm us, and why all of this is going on, and why they're not from little planets out in Zeta Reticuli. Well, the answer is that a system that comes through our planet on a regular basis called Nibiru, or the wing planet, or the horn planet, doesn't actually strike the planet, but leaves a lot of meteoritic debris in its wake. It also contains a very massive planet. Now, this is a very, very handy natural disaster that occurs. It also, because of the mass of the planet Nibiru, wipes our memories. So we are not alone, as many people think. In fact, there are a large amount of alien structures out in our solar system. We might even live in a breeding cage that we call our solar system. There are videos that prove that, particularly the outer space connection. You can Google that, the outer space connection. Why would they farm us? Well, our DNA is very valuable. It's very magical. It's very David Blaine. It's very Sai Baba. And they can't recreate it, but they do want to own it. So, ergo, they want to own us, control us. Of course, we could just be a big McDonald's drive-through. Not a very nice thought of that. Now, there's lots and lots of proof that says that in our archaeological record, and that is history, that very bad disasters have befallen man. Virtually every culture has an antediluvian flood myth. But here's how the NASA astronomer says it's going to go down. First, there'll be a meteorite shower. Then this winged planet, which is 5 times more massive than our Earth, or Jupiter, I can't remember what he said, but something like that, it's massive, will tilt the planet over on its side. It'll grab our pole. the North Pole or the South. It doesn't really matter, and we'll flip over, causing huge tidal waves in the order of between 2 and 5 kilometers high, depending on where and when they strike. Big waves. Then, of course, every volcano on the planet's going to go off, and massive earthquakes could occur, but we're talking massive, the kind of massive that put Lake Titicaca 14,000 foot into the air when it was previously at sea level. And new continents may arise and continents may fall. See the Edgar Cayce map. The gentleman certainly got it right on a number of occasions, probably the best indicator we've got of what could befall us. So again, extraterrestrials have been farming us for maybe 3 billion years. There may be more solar system type matrix cages like ours. In other words, we're cage 1A and there's cage 1. It's a nice franchise, basically. Human beings may be very tasty. Wok's an extraterrestrial. Yes, I did say woks. And we don't really know, but what we do know is that there's a cyclic occurrence of destruction on the planet which wipes out even the nicest civilizations like the Acropolis. And if you go to all over the world, you'll find that there are antediluvian structures that nobody understands and nobody's going to explain to you. No, they all these beautiful they won't explain pyramidal mathematics to you. They won't tell you how to square the circle. In fact, they'll talk garbage to you. So, yeah, what is actually happening now is we're being dumbed down. Although there have been indications in the news that there's giant red planets and whatever. They've known that this Nibiru is coming since 1950. And come it will, apparently. I'm not an astronomer, so I can't tell you for sure. We'll have to wait until it actually appears. But there is some evidence that something nasty might be going on. A lot of people like you and me who know nothing, have nothing, and can do nothing are witnessing twin suns where the sun comes up and there seems to be another sun. And, of course, everyone's saying, it's aberrations in your lens. Well, believe what you like. The point being that aliens have got nothing to gain by being our pals. We're a violent and destructive mob, and we like doing our own thing, and we might even be a threat to them. Anyway, there you go. Think about that.
I devoted a lifetime to the study of ancient civilizations, ancient languages, their art, their beliefs, and the knowledge that they had. And the question is, when you study, when you look at all that, is it myth, is it mythology, or did it really happen? I believe it all really happened.
In our obsession with antagonisms of the moment, we often forget how much unites all the members of humanity. Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world. And yet, I ask you, is not an alien force already among us?
Space is the inescapable challenge to all the advanced nations of the Earth. And it established the United States as the preeminent spacefaring nation. First for the coming decade, for the 1990s, Space Station Freedom. And next, for the new century, back to the moon, back to the future, and this time, back to stay. And then a journey into tomorrow, a journey to another planet, a manned mission to Mars.
A manned mission to Mars? An ambitious objective, and with the success of the Mars probes and NASA's rover, one that humanity has made substantial strides toward achieving. Could there have been a space base on Mars in antiquity?
If we had physical, tangible evidence of artifacts on Mars, we are not only not alone in the universe, but someone has been on the next planet over. That in itself will forever change our frame of reference.
Mankind came out of the Dark Ages and the Middle Ages, reached the Age of Enlightenment, experienced the Industrial Revolution, and entered the era of advanced technology, the era of genetic engineering, and the era of spaceflight.
Big shadow. 4 forward, drift into the right a little. 30 seconds forward, drift. We copy you down, Eagle. The Eagle has landed.
Astronauts who land like eagles. Zecharia Sitchin's research reveals that in our ancient past there were advanced beings referred to as the Anunnaki, translated, those who from heaven to earth came.
The idea that there was in our solar system a race of intelligent beings far older than us who are now gone would certainly force us to rethink lots of questions, including the question of human origins. Where did we come from? Could we be the products of genetic engineering?
The hypothesis that modern science is only now catching up with ancient knowledge is inspiring scientists and researchers to increase efforts to rediscover that which may have been lost over time.
It rekindles a situation that has lain dormant almost 5,500 years, the incident of the Tower of Babel. In the Babylonian version of the biblical story, the people of Babylon were building a tower whose head shall reach the heaven, in which a Shem, a space rocket, was to be installed under the direction of their supreme god. But the other deities were not amused by this foray of mankind into the space age.
The biblical story recalls that Yahweh came down to see the city and the tower that the humans were building, and he said to his colleagues in Genesis chapter 11,
"This is just the beginning of their undertakings. From now on, anything that they shall scheme to do shall no longer be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and confuse their language so that they should not understand each other's speech."
Thanks to the science of archaeology, experts now know that the first great civilization emerged almost 6,000 years ago. Older than the Greeks, older than the Mayans, older than the Incas. The people of this society were called Sumerians, after their land, Sumer, in the great plain between the Euphrates and Tigris rivers, today's Iraq. The book of Genesis calls the land Shinear. For generations, biblical scholars either ignore biblical references to ancient kingdoms or categorize these as legend or lore. Through the study of historical relics and the translation of ancient languages, many biblical researchers now believe that the previously questioned Old Testament references are indeed historically authentic accounts of flourishing, advanced cultures.
If you study the Genesis document, God made Adam out of clay and then took Eve out of his rib, one of his ribs, etc. If you study this document, you discover that it's really a much shorter version of a much more complicated document that comes out of Babylonia and then out of Sumer and so on. Now, these ancient texts give a really complicated story of powerful, non-human, godlike beings actually engineering us, making us for specific purposes.
Zecharia Sitchin's investigation into these cultures brings him to this 6,000-year-old temple in an excavated area of the ancient city Erech. Until its discovery only 150 years ago, Erech was known only through passages in the Bible. The temple is dedicated to a female goddess named Inanni, also referred to in later times as Ishtar. Zecharia Sitchin.
You can see here her features a little damaged. Her divinity was marked by the pair of horns that she had. She held a jar with the water of life, and she was surrounded as a decoration, but perhaps also symbolically, with a symbol that some refer to as entwined snakes, which was the symbol of science in those days, 6,000 years ago. Some find in it a precursor of the Egyptian Ankh, which was the symbol of life and creation.
Further results of Mr. Sitchin's research affirm the theory that this visage of entwined snakes is the symbol for genetic manipulation of DNA. Carved out in stone over 6,000 years ago, Ishtar is sometimes depicted flying through the sky and leaving the Earth's atmosphere to traverse the heavens. In ancient Mesopotamia, the secrets of astronomy and other celestial knowledge are kept carefully guarded, studied behind closed doors by an exclusive society of priest astronomers. Cylinder seals like these are the only surviving record of these carefully guarded secrets. This clay tablet carries the print of a cylinder seal about 4,500 years old. It depicts the god Enlil granting the plow to humankind, ushering in the age of modern agriculture. On closer inspection, something completely remarkable can be seen. A detailed depiction of the complete solar system configured identically to that known to contemporary science. With the sun prominently figured in the center, each planet appears in its correct position and relative proportions to the other planetary bodies. On the outskirts is one additional planet, a 10th, not currently located by astronomers of our modern era. Astronomers around the world are on the lookout for this evasive celestial sphere, as a growing body of physical evidence indicates that it does in fact exist.
History records the discovery of the planet Pluto as February 18, 1930, by astronomer Clyde Tombaugh. Yet, Pluto is clearly shown on the imprint taken from the Sumerian cylinder seal. There is also one additional planet, the one that scientists refer to as the mysterious Planet X, the yet undiscovered most distant member of our solar system.
According to modern science, prior to the invention of the telescope in the 1600s, humanity had no knowledge of outlying planets beyond Jupiter, as these bodies cannot be viewed with the naked eye. Since the day of Galileo Galilei, optical astronomers have amassed an important body of knowledge about the outer planets. These theories established by astronomers from around the globe have been uncontested these last centuries. With the technological advancements of our day, new vantage points have developed, such as the unobstructed view of NASA's Hubble telescope and the perspective gained through unmanned probes sent on reconnaissance missions to the outer reaches of our solar system. These breakthroughs in space exploration reveal many inaccuracies in earlier astronomical conclusions. On August 19, 1977, the American space probe Voyager 2 leaves Cape Canaveral on a several-year journey to the vicinity of this solar system's most distant planets. The Voyager's discoveries challenge many of astronomy's recent conclusions, while fully corroborating ancient knowledge. For the first time, we see images of Uranus. Astonishingly, it is exactly as the Sumerians report in their 6,000-year-old description. Though they have no telescopes that we know of, the Sumerians characterize Uranus as Mash-Sik, translated bright greenish. They also explain the unique planetary tilt of Uranus. According to the Sumerians, our solar system was invaded by a planetary body that caused collisions and disrupted the existing order. NASA scientists concur that a collision with a body the size of Earth, traveling at 40,000 miles per hour, could have caused both the orbital skew of Uranus and the devastation apparent from the planet's surface scarring. Its neighbor Neptune was described as a blue-green planet by the Sumerians millennia ago, but science has only confirmed this fact during the past few decades. The Sumerians named and listed all of the planets in our solar system. Their documented list of these planets is tangible evidence that in at least one respect, modern man is on a path of rediscovery.
That ancient knowledge included the planets Uranus and Neptune, supposedly unknown until discovered in 1781 and 1846, and even Pluto, not discovered until 1930.
Neptune, Nudimmud, the artful creator. Uranus, Anu, he of the heavens. Saturn, Anshar, foremost of the heavens. Jupiter, Kishar, foremost of firm lands. The asteroid belt, Rakish, the hammered bracelet. Mars, Lamu, god of war. And key, Earth, what the Sumerians considered to be the seventh planet. Why the seventh planet? Why not the third, as Earth is so often referred to in modern parlance? Sumerian records indicate that they began their counting not from the sun, but from a planet on the outside of the solar system.
But most surprising was the inclusion of one more large planet as the 12th member of our solar system.
The launch of Pioneer 10 in 1972 ushers in the era of deep space exploration. The craft journeys beyond the outer known planets, sending back data that is used to seek a possible 10th planet.
14 August 1978, which was just about 6 weeks after we discovered the fact that Pluto has a satellite. Once you have a satellite for a planet, you can determine how heavy it is. It turns out Pluto was very much smaller and lighter weight than we had thought, which meant that Pluto has no influence, no appreciable influence on the motions of the planets Uranus and Neptune. At that point, we voiced the hypothesis that this means that there is at least one yet-to-be-discovered planet in the outer reaches of the solar system.
Over the past 2 decades, physicists have joined astronomers in the search for the mysterious Planet X.
One of the things we did in 1978, having made this prediction that there was an additional planet, 10th or 12th, depending on your point of view, we sort of put our money where our mouth was, as it were, and we went out and we started looking for this thing. We've been able to refine the search area somewhat, get it rather narrowed down. We do our predictions based on the observed anomalies in Uranus and Neptune. We actually are currently looking down in the region of Centaurus, which is just south of the constellation Libra. But if it is in the kind of orbit that we describe here, it would have to be a planet that would have a mass something like 3 to 5 times the mass of the Earth. This would put it intermediate between the gaseous planets like Uranus and Neptune and the terrestrial planets that we have in the inner part of the solar system. So if this planet turns out to be in a 3,600-year orbit, then its mass will be correspondingly larger. This one here is a map of the solar system as we know it. The inner planets, this is the orbit of planet Pluto. And this here is the orbit that I have proposed for the 10th planet. And here's where we think it is right about now in its orbit.
If Planet X exists, we are not alone in this solar system.
Earth, the 7th planet. The sacred number 7, 7 days in the week, 7 days of Genesis, 7 tablets of creation. A case can be made for historical coincidence, but to Zecharia Sitchin, this kind of numeric repetition points to more than just legend. Whichever way you look at it, the facts about this 10th planet are nothing less than astonishing.
The story of this planet, as told by the Sumerians on their 7 tablets of creation, begins 4 billion years ago, when our solar system was much younger and our own planet Earth did not yet exist.
The surviving historical records of the Sumerians reveal the story of an intruder planet, Nibiru, which appeared out of deep space, drawn into the center of our solar system by the planetary pull of Neptune, Uranus, Saturn, and Jupiter. On an opposing orbital path with the 7th planet, a planet referred to in Sumerian records as Tiamat, Nibiru's new orbit around the Sun placed the 2 planets on a collision course.
Sumerian cosmogony answers many puzzles that still baffle modern science. Central to it was the tale of a celestial collision and knowledge of a solar system with 12 members.
As they draw near, one of the satellites of Nibiru crashes into Tiamat, cracking the planet. Subsequent collisions smash half of Tiamat completely, breaking the pieces into what develops mostly into the asteroid belt. This is referred to in the Bible and Sumerian text as the firmament. The other half of Tiamat becomes Earth. The Earth is thrust into a new orbital position, carrying with it Tiamat's main satellite, our moon. Nibiru, the intruder, is cast into a permanent clockwise solar orbit, returning to Earth's neighborhood once each 3,600 years, forever becoming the 12th member of our solar system.
This tale of creation echoed through all the ancient cultures, becoming part of the scientific knowledge that we find in the Old Testament, in the creation story of Genesis.
In the aftermath of the collision, the biblical creator Elohim proclaims,
"Let the waters under the heaven be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear." And it was so. And Elohim called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters he called seas.
If Earth is the orbital remains of a planetary collision, scientists believe that the most obvious place to look for planetary scarring is 7 miles below the surface of the Pacific Ocean.
When in the heights heavens had not been named, and below earth had not been called, naught but primordial Apsu, their begetter, Mamu, and Tiamat, she who bore them all. Their waters were mingled together.
2 planets mingled together. The biblical passage of Genesis reads,
"In the beginning God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, Let there be light. And there was light."
If we apply the knowledge of the Mesopotamian text to the biblical text, the correct reading of the book of Genesis emerges, especially in relation to waters.
And Elohim said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters." And Elohim made the firmament, dividing the waters which are under the firmament from the waters which are above the firmament. And Elohim called the firmament heaven.
Upper waters? Lower waters? What does the Bible mean by this? The Sumerians describe Uranus and Neptune as watery planets. What are the conclusions of modern science? In 1979, 1980, and 1981, Pioneer and Voyager visit Jupiter and Saturn with their many moons. During these missions, water is discovered virtually everywhere, as ice on the surface and as water below the surface. The Sumerians' ancient claim of water on Jupiter's moons Io and Europa is proven. The Sumerian records indicate water on Enceladus and Tethys, 2 of the moons of Saturn, and in that planet's spectacular rings. The findings of NASA confirm these ancient Sumerian assertions, giving further credence and clarity to the biblical quote, "waters above the firmament." Halley's Comet travels through space, itself a spectacular confirmation of the biblical claim, "waters above the firmament." Nearly 4 billion years old, with a core half the size of Manhattan Island, this mystic traveler throws off water at the rate of 30 to 70 tons a second, with enough mass to continue its purge for thousands of years. Was ancient man aware of this spectral vision?
The unusual celestial object, reported in Babylonian texts to have been seen in the year 164 BC, is believed to have been Halley's Comet. Significantly, it was considered the scepter star of Israel.
In the Bible, the book of Numbers records,
"I see it, though not now. I behold it, though it is not near. A star of Jacob did course. The scepter of Israel did arise."
Halley's Comet and its lights are truly the messengers of Genesis.
when the 19th century astronomer Schiaparelli announced that he had seen canals on Mars, he was ridiculed. So too was the respected American astronomer Lowell in 1916. When NASA's unmanned spacecraft visits Mars in the 70s and again in the 90s, ample evidence of water in that planet's past is revealed. Images from expeditions to Venus and Mars exhibit visual evidence of dry sea, lake, and riverbeds characteristic of the biblical reference, waters above the firmament. Even Mercury, so close to the Sun, seems to have had a watery past, yet maintaining ice at its polar caps. The NASA report reads, quote, "We are forced to no other conclusion but that we are seeing the effects of water on Mars," unquote. And, quote, "Mars once had enough water to form a layer several meters deep over the whole surface of the planet," unquote. What we previously believed to be a dry and barren planet unexpectedly emerges as a planet where water once existed in abundance. Mars joins Venus, Mercury, the Earth, and most recently the Earth's moon in corroborating the Sumerian concept of water below the firmament.
With the discovery of water on the moon and distant planets, the possibility of colonization suddenly becomes much more viable. Oxygen can be extracted from the water to be used in domed habitats on planets with minimal atmosphere. And water is one of the principal ingredients of rocket fuel. This find increases the possibility of unlimited treks across the stars.
We've had reports to the effect that the Viking equipment will never determine positively whether or not there's life on Mars. Can you set us straight on this?
Well, my own view is it's much too soon to decide whether we will have a definitive answer. It may be that there is an exotic biology on Mars. It may be that there's an exotic chemistry which looks a little bit like biology. There's a number of experiments to be done. They might decide the issue, they might not. But either way, Viking has been a biological success because the chemical explanation means that there is a kind of chemistry on the Martian surface which simulates some of the steps of chemistry in biology. We would learn something important about the origin of life.
In October 1988, the Soviet Union sends two unmanned spacecraft, Phobos 1 and 2, named for one of the Martian moons, to study the red planet. Phobos 1 is lost while on its way to Mars. But Phobos 2 arrives to orbit Mars and immediately sends images back to Earth. On March 1st, 1989, pictures of this unusual grid are received. The grid, here in the upper right, is shot both in the optical range and in the infrared range. Later, they are merged into this composite overlay. On March 26th, Phobos 2 sends these images to Earth, taken just south of the equator. An unexplained elliptical shape appears.
This shadow actually appeared all of a sudden. Why am I calling it a shadow? Because you can see things through it.
This elliptical shadow, then, is it in Mars' atmosphere or on the planet's surface?
One thing is for sure. This something is not positioned horizontally.
Well, to me it looks like a rocket taking off from the surface of Mars and leaving a trail behind.
Well, if you'd want to fantasize, it could be interpreted that way too. Now we think we ought to look at the real circumstances that have caused that trail, even though they haven't yet been fully clarified. That's more likely to be the shadow of some object, since surface elements can be seen through it.
How long will it take to process all of the information to get more or less objective scientific results, rather than fantastic ones?
Come back in a week.
1 week later, no details are given. Then, unexpectedly, this report.
Last year, the Soviets launched 2 spacecraft to the planet, both named after the Martian moon, Phobos. Their mission was to photograph Mars and land probes on its moon. One was accidentally switched off by a mission operator. But the second reached Mars and transmitted pictures that are still puzzling Soviet scientists. As it swung over the equator, it took pictures from a height of 6,000 kilometers. This is an infrared photograph. It shows differences in temperature. The dark patches are colder. This section covers 600 kilometers. It shows objects down to the size of 2 kilometers. It's the most detailed infrared picture of the planet's surface.
We have some very, very thin lines on the surface of Mars in the infrared, which means it's heat. It's not visible, it's heat. You can see it through clouds if you want to. These have a resolution, these have a width, I would guess, of 3 or 4 kilometers wide. In answer to the question of what it is, I certainly don't know. The Russians aren't telling us.
Scientists are also puzzled by this shadow pictured on the surface of Mars by both optical and heat-seeking cameras. They're convinced it's a shadow because they can see objects on the surface beneath. But a shadow of what? Finally, there's the mystery of the vanishing spacecraft. The Russians have yet to release the last picture transmitted by Phobos before it lost contact with ground control. But the Russians have said that it shows an object coming towards the spacecraft, an object which, in their words, should not have been there.
The spacecraft was circling Mars, coming into the same orbit as the moons of Mars. And the last picture, they got halfway through it, and they saw something there which shouldn't be there. Professor Kapitsa makes the joke that it's Martian people.
British scientists will be able to judge for themselves when the Soviets bring their pictures to a conference at Exeter next month. Because, of course, there must be a sensible explanation, mustn't there?
The Russians do not bring any pictures to the Exeter conference. How does the Russian Space Agency explain the spacecraft's destruction or disappearance?
It does take a minimum of precision criteria to obtain on the image these spots, which some would like to call flying saucers, that appeared within the visual field of the infrared range. It must be pointed out that the flying saucer version is not ours. Actually, at first we were saying that there was no flying saucer, that surely all that we saw could be explained in understandable, natural and physical terms.
One possibility could easily be that the small meteorite, a small bit of rock, was in the same orbit of Phobos and hit it.
In an exclusive interview conducted in October 1990 in Moscow, Professor Lev Mukin of the Soviet Space Research Institute discredits the meteorite theory.
There were attempts to hypothesize that there had been a collision between the space probe, which was then orbiting Mars in alignment with the orbit of Mars moonlet, and strands of dust surrounding the moon Phobos itself. But some fairly accurate computations made by several organizations, and by our institute as well, have shown that this assumption is totally baseless.
If not meteorite or debris, then what could possibly explain the mishap? A long silence follows. Then in December 1991, Marina Popovich, former cosmonaut trainee and retired Air Force colonel, holds a surprise press conference at the Russian consulate in San Francisco. She unearths the mysterious last photograph taken by Phobos. There is a strange shape in the foreground. Colonel Popovich refers to this as an unidentified flying object, a UFO. The object is juxtaposed against what appears to be the planet's tiny moonlet, Phobos, for which the craft is named. But how is the mysterious shadow explained? The Russians say it is a shadow of some object on or just above the Martian surface. Upon further examination in April 1992, when all of the related photographs are compared side by side, scientists reach the conclusion that the shadow is actually moving. If Mars was indeed the site of a space base in antiquity, could the failure of these Soviet space missions be attributed to some sort of alien intervention? Could the ancient space base have been reactivated?
So the mystery remains. What caused the spacecraft to destabilize? Was it a malfunction? Or was there an outside cause, perhaps an impact? The question that arises is indeed a simple one. Was the spacecraft Phobos 2 hit by something that put it out of commission? The circumstances in which Phobos 2 was lost suggest that someone might be back on Mars, someone ready to knock out what to them is an alien spacecraft.
Was Phobos deactivated by intelligent beings wishing to protect themselves from outsiders? Or perhaps there's some other more conventional explanation? We may never know. But indulging the possibilities of otherworldly visitors in the present will help us acclimate to their differences, if and when they finally do come calling. The question remains, how would we as a culture respond to incontrovertible evidence of a species of beings that not only preceded our own, but actually engineered mankind?
Of all the elusive mysteries, the greatest is the riddle of life itself. How did it begin? From what corner of the universe did the first emanations of existence arise? Was the seed of life carried to Earth from the planet Nibiru?
There has been a blending of interest in biologists on one hand and planetary astronomers on the other in the question of the origin of life. Because the same questions about how life originated on Earth also would apply to Mars or some other solar system. And just as they really can't explain how life originated on Earth, they don't really know how it originated elsewhere.
Contemporary scientific thinking cautiously asserts that life arrives on Earth when certain chemical substances crash into the surface aboard a stray comet early in our planet's history.
What we are trying to find out in the meteorites is to see whether there are any of these molecules related to life. There are certain molecules, like the amino acids, which may be described as the building blocks of life.
Directed panspermia, another scientific theory, suggests that life on Earth is seeded by a race of beings from outside the planet, not by chance, but as the deliberate activity of an otherworldly society. The Bible suggests that the creation of humankind comes at the end of a long list.
All the fishes of the sea, and all the fowl that fly the skies, and all the animals that fill the earth, and all the creeping things that crawl upon the earth. It was only then that Elohim created the atom.
In the last few pages of the story of creation, the Sumerians point to the Anunnaki as the creators of mankind, our own benefactors of life. According to Sumerian text, the Anunnaki, in advance of landing 445,000 years ago, sent androids to scout the Earth. 150,000 years later, the Anunnaki themselves arrive and create humankind. How was Adam created? According to the Sumerians, it was by genetic engineering, fertilization in vitro, in a glass tube, as depicted in this cylinder seal rendering.
Adam was the first test tube baby.
In Genesis chapter 1, verse 26, the Bible reads,
"Let us make the atom in our image and likeness."
But why? Sumerian documentation suggests the Anunnaki create humanity to assist in mining African gold that they need to save the dwindling atmosphere of their home planet, Nibiru.
Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, the three great Western traditions, religious traditions, are all founded on the idea that there's something special about human beings. We didn't arrive here accidentally, so we're not just some consequence of billions of years of pointless accidental permutations of life forms. No, we were created in the image of God. The creation really is about the process of our salvation. Now, what if it were the case that there were creatures both technologically more advanced than us, older than us in terms of their civilization, and maybe even more intelligent than us, and more spiritually advanced, if we could imagine that? Then would this cause the creation story to collapse and leaving, literally billions of people on the planet totally confused about the meaning of life?
The Bible relates an incident of mankind overstepping the bounds of the Anunnaki when the Babylonians attempt to reach the gods by building an enormous launch pad in the archetypal story of the Great Tower of Babel. What is the target of their efforts? According to Zecharia Sitchin, it is our neighboring planet Mars, home of the Anunnaki's way station en route to Earth.
The Sumerian tablets refer to the station planet Mars as the traveler's ship. I've taken it to mean that it was at Mars that the Anunnaki from Nibiru transferred to smaller spacecraft to reach Earth orbiting stations. Not once every 3,600 years, but on a more frequent schedule.
Mesopotamian archives identify the 12 members of our solar system with specific symbols. Some, like Mars, Earth, and Venus, are indicated numerically on this ancient stela.
We see the sun with its many rays. We see another 4 depicted standing on their cult animals, but really it's a symbolism connected with the zodiac. We see the moon, and we see the earth symbolized by the 7 dots, which indicated the position of the earth from the outer limits of the solar system, counting or coming in inwards by somebody flying into from outer space.
The 7 dots of Earth with its crescent moon and the 6-pointed star of Mars are revealing clues in this 4,500-year-old Sumerian depiction. 2 figures stand on either side of a craft. Some researchers believe that Mars was habitable as little as 10,000 years ago.
A 10th planet? A mysterious species with the technology to genetically engineer humankind? A few years ago, most of us would have laughed at these ideas, but after the cloning of Dolly the sheep and some of the breakthroughs in genetic engineering, these concepts begin to sound more plausible. When we come back, we'll look at some photographic evidence that raises more serious questions about what the mysterious Anunnaki may have left behind.
When the United States launches the Mariner and Viking spacecraft to explore Mars in the 60s and 70s, enigmatic structures resembling those on Earth are photographed. This is a feature on Mars that NASA nicknames the Inca City. Here we see it compared with Sacsayhuaman, Peru. These are lines on the Mars surface. These are the Nazca lines in Peru.
I feel that what has been discovered so far is very suggestive of intelligent layout, but it would be irresponsible of me to say I have proof. What I have is evidence which makes it appear as though it's been designed by some kind of intelligent thinking process, which is probably even more advanced than our current in some ways.
I was especially intrigued by independent researchers' suggestions in their reports that the orientation of the face and adjoining pyramid indicated they were built in alignment with sunrise at solstice time on Mars about 450,000 years ago.
Could it be that a civilization capable of space travel almost 500,000 years ago visited this part of the solar system, leaving behind monuments on Earth and Mars? The only beings mentioned by name are the Anunnaki. The only evidence supporting such a theory is evidence of visits by the Anunnaki.
We have seen societies on Earth that have been demolished by cultural cross-representation, if you like. Meeting a more advanced culture has had a severe impact on an existing culture. But I think we're intelligent enough to be prepared for that.
Our civilization is technologically able to venture out into deep space on scientific quests of discovery. Can anyone then deny the possibility that members from a technologically more advanced world may have visited our solar system thousands of years ago? Thanks to the work of Zecharia Sitchin and others like him, we know more than we ever have about ancient cultures and the life that came before.
Is this Genesis revisited? Did the Sumerians in their ancient tablets reveal that we're only now catching up with ancient knowledge? Do the discoveries making headlines today originate with our ancient ancestors? Was this ancient knowledge given to the people of Sumeria by those distant explorers from the mysterious 10th planet, Nibiru, the Anunnaki? The final answers may lay buried in those yet to be uncovered volumes of the Phenomenon Archives.
more we study the evidence that is being assembled all over the earth, the more inescapable the conclusion that man had best prepare himself for the greatest event in human history.
During our first mission to the moon, Mission Control recorded the following broadcast of strange noises that were heard on the Apollo 11 spacecraft.
This is Apollo Control. Still no explanation. The weird noises emanating from Apollo 11. If indeed it is from Apollo 11, perhaps it'll all shake out later in the mission as to what these strange noises are.
In his book, Secrets of the UFOs, ufologist Don Elkins made the following observation. I have found that some people can achieve the contact phenomenon simply by being hypnotized, and the same general message permeates over 90% of the millions of words received by thousands of people around the world.
No one knows what hypnosis is. No one knows what goes on in the mind. It's an altered state of consciousness like yogis and witch doctors have been practicing. It loosens the normal connection between your spirit and your brain, and of course if the hypnotist can control you, make all kinds of suggestions, make you think things are happening that are not happening, make you think you have powers that you don't, experiences that you haven't, even implant memories. Other beings, if there are other minds out there, they could also do the same thing. Sir John Eccles, Nobel Prize winner for his research on the brain, describes the brain as, quote, a machine that a ghost can operate, unquote. What he means by that is your spirit operates your brain in a normal state of consciousness. In an altered state, reached under yoga, a TM, hypnosis, you have loosened the normal connection between your spirit and your brain, and that allows another spirit, other entities, other minds to interpose themselves and begin to tick off the neurons in your brain, create a universe of illusion. I believe that it's demonic. I think all of the evidence indicates this.
Some people claim that by allowing themselves to be put into an hypnotic trance, they are acting as a channeling device in which the extraterrestrial being speaks through them. The following is an actual sampling of those messages. We come from the Interplanetary Confederation of Solar Systems, and our purpose is to aid our brother man on the planet Earth as the new age dawns. The teacher that was known to you as Jesus was able to use many more of the abilities than the people of this planet. Unfortunately, man upon planet Earth has misinterpreted the meaning of this man's life. He was no different from any of you. He was simply able to remember certain principles. These principles may be realized by anyone at any time. It is only necessary that you avail yourself to our contact through meditation in order to begin to re-realize that which is rightfully yours. UFO researcher John Weldon then offers this question. How credible is it to think that literally thousands of genuine extraterrestrials would fly millions of light years simply to teach New Age philosophy, deny Christianity, and support the occult? And why would the entities actually possess and inhabit people just like demons do if they were really advanced extraterrestrials? Dr. Pierre Guérin, an eminent scientist associated with the French National Council for Scientific Research, concludes that UFO behavior is more akin to magic than to physics as we know it, and that modern UFOnauts and the demons of past days are probably identical.
You can literally hypnotize a person, tell them that there's a cat in their lap, they will see it, they will hear it, purr, they will pet it and feel it. It's not physically there. You tell the cat to scratch them, you know, and bring them out of it. There are scratch marks on their cheek. A non-physical object, under the right conditions, can leave physical evidence. I think it's demonic. It's a spiritual power of some kind for which there is no physical explanation. You can't explain it with the laws of chemistry and physics as we know it. In Close Encounters of the Third Kind, that first film that came out about UFOs, the house that the mother and little boy were living in, you know, the toys began running around and screws unscrewing in the presence of UFOs. What the film was saying was the same people that run UFOs run haunted houses. And I would say that's absolutely true.
In 1969, the United States Printing Office issued a 400-page publication entitled UFOs and Related Subjects, an Annotated Bibliography. The author was the senior bibliographer for the Library of Congress, Miss Lynn E. Cateau. During her research, she read over 1,000 articles, books, and other literature. She summarizes her findings in the preface of the bibliography. A large part of the available UFO literature is closely linked with mysticism and the metaphysical. It deals with subjects like mental telepathy, automatic writing, and invisible entities, as well as phenomena like poltergeist manifestations and possession. Many of the UFO reports now being published in the popular press recount alleged incidents that are strikingly similar to demonic possession and psychic phenomenon that have long been known to theologians and parapsychologists. This document was compiled for the United States Air Force and is now in the Library of Congress. Dr. Jacques Vallée has addressed the United Nations on UFOs and was the model for Lacombe in Steven Spielberg's Close Encounters of the Third Kind. He is the author of 8 books on UFOs and has been widely recognized as the premier investigating scientist in the realm of UFO research. In his book, Messengers of Deception, Vallée says, an impressive parallel can be made between UFO occupants and the popular conception of demons. And in his book, Confrontations, he writes, the medical examinations to which abductees are said to be subjected, often accompanied by sadistic sexual manipulation, is reminiscent of the medieval tales of encounters with demons. He also made this statement, I believe that when we speak of UFO sightings as instances of space visitations, we are looking at the phenomenon on the wrong level. We are not dealing with successive waves of visitations from space. We are dealing with a control system. And he states, UFOs are the means through which man's concepts are being rearranged. They are engaging in a worldwide enterprise of subliminal seduction.
Jacques Vallée, at least at that time when he wrote that book, was an agnostic. Interesting that he comes to basically the same conclusions I do as a Christian from my research. And he said about UFOs, they're real, but they're not physical. They're messengers of deception. And this was based on his research of about 20 years. They seem to be psychologically preparing, setting us up for some ultimate delusion that is too horrible even to imagine as yet. I would agree with that.
Dr. I.D.E. Thomas is one of a long line of Welsh preachers. He is currently the senior pastor at the First Baptist Church of Maywood, California, and has authored several books which have enjoyed wide circulation. In his book, The Omega Conspiracy, Dr. Thomas explains the phenomenon of unidentified flying objects and offers an explanation that could identify the beings who operate them. As incredible as his explanation may sound, let us regard the ancient saying of Heraclitus, who 500 years before Christ said, because it is sometimes so unbelievable, the truth escapes becoming known.
The answer to all this and the clue to this cosmic riddle may be found in the ancient book of Genesis. And back there in chapter 6, we are told of a very amazing and bizarre event. The sons of God saw the daughters of men and saw that they were beautiful, and they lusted after them. And then we read they married them and sired children from them. For the past 1,500 years, most scholars, including evangelical scholars, have interpreted the sons of God as the good sons of Seth, and the daughters of men as the wicked daughters of Cain. They've adopted that interpretation because the other one is so bizarre and outlandish. The ancient interpretation, and in my opinion the correct one, is that the sons of God were demonic beings or fallen angels, and that they came down to earth, they lusted after the daughters of men, they married them, and produced this amazing progeny, this hybrid progeny of the Nephilim. And the very word Nephilim does not mean giants. It comes from the root Nephal, fallen ones. The early Christian fathers in the first 4 centuries, men like Irenaeus, Tertullian, Ambrose, for 400 years they knew no other interpretation except that the sons of God were angelic beings. Josephus, the cosmopolitan Jewish historian, says the same thing. We read in the book of Job that when God laid the foundation of the earth, the sons of God shouted for joy. Obviously, the sons of God could not be human beings. Adam had not been created. If this was a case of just mixed marriages between good men and wicked women, it is surprising that God should have issued the fire of judgment that he did. God took this stern action of wiping out the human race. Now, the only family that were left intact in order to re-establish, repopulate the new world was the family of Noah. Noah, we are told, was perfect in his generations. The word perfect does not mean, in this case, morally perfect, because we know from the story of Noah, and especially what happened after the flood, that Noah was not perfect. What it means is like a lamb for the paschal sacrifice, that lamb had to be without blemish, physically pure, without blemish. So it seems was the case of Noah, the only family that remained uncontaminated from these strange beings that appeared from space. The only line that was pure and clean from God's standpoint to start a new world and a new civilization. Jesus said, as in the days of Noah, so in the days of the coming of the Son of Man. Of all the patriarchs and prophets of the Old Testament, the key to prophecy above all others is Noah. And something happened in the days of Noah that was a distinctive characteristic of Noah's time that didn't happen before or after. Wars and famines and pestilences and natural disasters have always happened. But something happened in the days of Noah, and the most sinister and bizarre of all the things that happened was this intermarriage between the angelic race and the human race. And of course the mastermind behind it all was another angel, a fallen angel, Lucifer. Now we believe that as they came in those days, we may very well be on the edge of another invasion from outer space, that Satan will once again make another attempt, maybe the final assault on the human race, in order to wean men and women away from the worship of God. He has tried before, he will inevitably try again. And by seducing the human race, by sending these so-called entities from space, demonic beings, he will try to get people all over the world to worship him and to deprive God of the worship that is due to him. Fortunately, we know what the end result is going to be. But this final or omega assault that will come at the end of time may trigger the coming back of Jesus Christ to rescue his own. Satan has failed before, and the Bible predicts he will fail again. We are told quite emphatically in God's word that the kingdoms of this world shall become the kingdom of our God and of his Christ. Satan will make the attempt, but our God, greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world.
Well, you know what? I am quite disturbed at what is actually trending at the moment. Because apparently, according to this website, Trend Hunter, it's trendy to see our planet, Mother Earth, being destroyed. Fancy that. Just seems like they really are enjoying the destruction of our home, our planet, our mother, because we are an extension of this planet. And while they are destroying our mother, they are actually destroying us. So, in fact, finding beauty in this destruction and having the mental perspective that this is somehow beautiful, you are actually seeing beauty in the destruction of yourself, the destruction of the future of the children, of the other creatures that exist on this planet. The marine life that are affected. There is no beauty in this destruction. This is an agenda to destroy creation. And the establishment understand that we are connected to our planet, Mother Earth, Gaia. We are an extension. We're an extension.
6.4 states, when the sons of God had intercourse with human women, they gave birth to the Nephilim. In the book of Isaiah, we see in Isaiah 29:15, quote, "Those who try and hide their plans from the Lord are doomed. They carry out their schemes in secret and think no one will see them or know what they are doing. They turn everything upside down." Isaiah gives us a clue to who they are. By turning the hieroglyph upside down, it is evident once again that there is a hidden agenda. That hidden agenda is the consumption of the souls of those that have been produced by the commingling of fallen angels or aliens with humans.
What is the Matrix? Control. The Matrix is a computer-generated dream built to keep us under control in order to change a human being into this. No. I don't believe it. It's not possible. I didn't say it would be easy. I just said it would be true. Stop. Let me out! Let me out! I want out!
Through the commingling of fallen angels with humans, a hybrid species is produced. This is exactly what is stated in the Bible in Genesis 6. In Genesis 3, the Bible says, "I will put enmity between the seed of the serpent and the seed of the woman." Here, we obviously have two seeds that are at conflict with one another. The seed of the serpent takes over what was previously a unified temple, so to speak. Through the commingling, the temple has become a kingdom divided and of a dual nature. And as one gets stronger, the other dies. This is also evidenced in the hieroglyph. There is an image of a sheep with its tongue sticking out because it is dying. The other half of the hybrid is the devil. Hence we, the sheep, are dying, and the devil or the serpent is taking over our temple. Our souls are the energy that is consumed. Jesus said, any kingdom that is divided against itself is brought to desolation. Because Jesus' statement is so clear, we can easily ascertain that the abomination that causes desolation is plain and simply the alien seed or the seed of the serpent that is growing within us. As we are the temple, while one seed grows, another seed is being destroyed. That means that the evil seed is making desolate the temple of God, which is our bodies, and we have become simply a host body for the devil. Because of the commingling of fallen angels with the human race, inside the same temple exist two separate and distinctly different personalities. This is made manifest in every aspect of our daily lives. However, part of us is asleep. You could say we walk around half asleep, even unaware of the change and the transformation that is going on within us. However, the other side makes manifest its presence throughout every aspect of life.
This is the world that you know.
In our architecture, we can clearly see the pyramid and the representation of the all-seeing eye, which is the representation of who this race of beings is. We can also see in our clothing that we wear on a daily basis that it has been influenced by these fallen angels and the resemblance of the pyramid and their god Lucifer. We'll discuss this further as we explore the bottom side of the pyramid as we go down towards the images that are printed on the United States currency, which are also a manifestation of the outworking of this spirit of disobedience that works throughout the hearts of men.
The universe is a big place. We have no idea how large it is, and we're not sure what it contains. Could life exist on other planets? There seems to be enough room. But could these life forms visit Earth? That debate continues. Skeptics argue there's no proof of alien life, but UFO watchers believe the proof is all around us. Here are the facts. Almost everyone has heard of unidentified flying objects, or UFOs. Reports of UFOs date back into antiquity. These reports don't prove aliens exist, they just mean that someone saw something in the air. According to Project Blue Book, 90% of UFO sightings can be attributed to weather, man-made devices, or other mundane causes. But some UFO watchers think we don't need to look to the skies for proof. There's plenty of mysterious stuff on the ground. Here's where it gets crazy. Researchers like Eric von Daniken believe in the ancient astronaut theory, which states that aliens visited Earth's civilizations in the remote past and were worshipped as gods. As evidence, these theorists point to enigmatic drawings and carvings found across the world. These images are thought to resemble modern-day descriptions of UFOs and aliens, but it doesn't stop there. For centuries, modern man had no idea how older civilizations built marvels like the pyramids of Giza or Machu Picchu. Researchers like Georgios Tsoukalos believe that extraterrestrials helped construct the pyramids. Tsoukalos also believes aliens were involved with the Nazca Lines, enormous geoglyphs stretching across the Peruvian desert. These lines trace out images that can only be seen from the air, yet they were built millennia before the airplane. According to this theory, the Nazca Lines are a solicitation, pleading for the return of the sky gods. Von Daniken and Tsoukalos cite other examples to support their theories, including the practice of skull modification in Mesoamerica. They believe this process of elongating the skull was intended to make upper-class members of the society resemble these ancient astronauts. Sounds weird, right? Before you answer that, consider cargo cults. The cargo cult is a religious movement that occurs when modern technology impacts a developing culture. For example, during World War II, the technology of Allied forces astonished native Pacific Islanders. Radios and fighter planes seemed to be a kind of magic. The native people created symbolic rifles and uniforms to mimic the soldiers they saw as gods. One of these cults continues today, on Tanna Island in Vanuatu. So we know the behavior ascribed to these ancient cultures is within the reach of human psychology. The real question is whether there were aliens around worth worshipping. History is a treacherous subject. After all, it's usually written by the winners. The further back we go, the more elusive the truth becomes. Skeptics call the ancient astronaut theory a pseudoscience born of institutionalized racism. Believers see it as a key to the incredible secrets of humanity's past. Are ancient astronauts a hoax designed to dismiss the achievements of bygone empires? Or are these vague carvings evidence of the world's first cargo cult? The remnants of something they don't want you to know.
It is nestled among the redwoods, 2,700 acres of pristine land, broken down into dozens of camps, and for 2 weeks every July since the 1880s, they've been filled with some of the most wealthy and powerful men in the world. Many of them arrive on their corporate jets at the nearby Sonoma County Airport. Others arrive in fancy cars, which will fill the on-site parking lot. At its height, there is said to be more than 2,000 men who attend, and as you can imagine, they are well protected by a trove of police.
This is private property.
Yeah, I know. So we're out covering the protest, and we just wanted to see if there was anyone that could give us...
I would like you guys to get off the property, please.
There's no way we could just get an escort?
Not at all, and I'll have the police come and arrest you if you don't leave, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Access is by invitation only, and most pay more than $15,000 to attend. And for more than 35 years, protesters have stood at the entrance gates.
Our concern is not what's going on inside of the Grove, but what's happening outside of the Grove with the people that are in here.
According to several reports, this is where the idea for the Manhattan Project was conceived back in 1942. It's also where every Republican president since the 60s has spent time before actually becoming the nominee.
We know for sure that Richard Nixon and Ronald Reagan sat down and had conversation about who was going to run for president when. And they made a deal.
Peter Phillips wrote his dissertation on the Bohemian Club in 1994 and was invited to attend for 4 days. He witnessed firsthand the opening event, the cremation of care, where the power elite leave their cares behind in a symbolic ceremony beneath Moloch the owl, seen in this photo. Jed Jankel says he was a paid employee of the Grove and drove the horse and buggy that carried the casket in the ceremony.
The casket represented their cares, and they would actually burn it in along the lake with music.
This is a place filled with secrets that only those who go inside and perhaps the trees will ever really know. But I was able to get my hands on some photographs that I want to show you just to give you a sense on what it looks like on the inside. This is a photograph of people who attend. As we mentioned, it is all men, and this is a photograph of some of them. This here was taken back in 1999. Colin Powell, the back of Donald Rumsfeld's head, and this is Thomas Keane. 2 years later, he would become head of the 9/11 Commission. Here's a picture, Newt Gingrich, Henry Kissinger's son, and another shot of Thomas Keane.
Here's a much younger Dick Cheney at the Grove, and Henry Kissinger having a little fun. I was also able to get my hands on several programs from previous years, outlining the schedule of talks and their topics.
And what we have here on July 22nd, 2008 is the Lakeside Talk given by CFR member and Trilateral Commission member Fred Starr. He gave a talk called Afghanistan, the Unexpected Upside.
There are other connections to be made as well between the Lakeside Talks and public policies that follow.
This was a man that was involved in the oil business, George Linkowitz, the Persian Gulf crisis. This is 1980. Caspar Weinberger, who was the Secretary of Defense in the Reagan administration on rearming America. And that's easily documented. The arms buildup came in around late 81, 82.
There are rumors of extreme drunkenness, of prostitutes, and of homosexual activities by members. But for the most part, it is the secret backroom agreements critics say should be brought to light.
That agreement can be, occupying the Middle East, fighting terrorism, encircling China politically and militarily.
For Mary Moore, who's been researching Bohemian Grove for more than 3 decades, what happens inside is symptomatic of a much larger problem.
We've all grown up taking civics, trying to understand how the world works, and we're all told that we elect representatives, they go to Washington, we have total influence over them, and they make decisions that are in the best interests of us. Then we start growing up, and if we pay any kind of attention, we find out that none of that is true.
In Monterey, California, Christine Frizzau, RT.
There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Like the other 2 are like clear back there, like they're disappearing.
Oh man, you can see it,
But you can still see, yeah.
There's 6 back there.
But like
It's too hard to see. 6 at once.
7. Oh look, there's one over there.
Oh, there's another. Oh, 7.
No, that's 8.
Well, the's 1, 2, 3,
Well, I mean,
4,
just
5.
now,
Oh, in the last like fucking 5 minutes, 8. 8.
8 of the bitches in a row.
8 of them.
And shit, didn't I say I was just waiting for the other?
I know, because there's
to
8
pop out slowly?
KC-10s right at the 185th refueling. There's 8 KC-10s. And there's 8 fucking planes in the air. All trailing. Here goes one. Hey, man. Thanks. I mean, dude, that fucking plane is not high enough to be a commercial fucking jet. I mean, it's just not. Dude, is that another one right there?
Where?
See the pole? Behind the pole?
No, I think that's the same one going that way.
8. That's the first time I've seen 8 in the air at once. But I mean, that to be a fucking commercial jet. I mean, even on my phone you can see the silhouette of the airplane. It's not high enough. Hey, man. It seriously is not high enough to be a commercial jet. I mean, you're looking at 35,000 feet on a commercial jet. You should not be able to see that plane. You can see the contrails or the chemtrails, but look how clear you can see the plane.
Yeah, I know. I can still see fucking planes down that way.
And for my phone to pick up the silhouette of the plane,
Yeah, that's big.
that's a big 8 planes all at once.
Like I can see the plane.
I know. This one, I mean, is right above us, but that one, shit. I mean, you can...
Hello, brothers and sisters. I just wanted to talk about something. I really do think that the fallen angels are here on the earth, and they're playing a big part in the end times. And there's a lot of people who are asleep right now, and they don't realize that that this is happening. Like, for instance, like all these false flags, and they have people going in and, committing, like, strange and crazy acts, like, going into a movie theater and shooting it up and, stuff like that. I really do believe that these are acts from, like, the fallen angels or their offspring. And the Bible does say that the fallen angels came to earth in Genesis 6, and they mated with women, and they had children that were very, very different than, normal children, that they were giants. If you just read Genesis 6, you'll see what I'm talking about. And also, if you read Genesis 6, it does talk about, a difference in how the babies look. Like, for instance, it says there were giants in the land, and it talks about their offsprings being giants, and the only way that could, happen is if some, like a mixing of some kind of DNA. And that was what was going on during the flood. And also it happened again during Sodom and Gomorrah, when God, whenever he poured brimstone down on the city, Well, it also says in the Bible that Jesus would return when the days are just like the days of Noah's days, and of the days are like Lot's days, and which was Lot was during the days of Sodom and Gomorrah. I can't say that correctly. I'm sorry, but anyways, we are living in those days right now, and those beings, these fallen angels and their offspring, they've gotten better at mixing their DNA. Now they can make a person probably not as like that stands out as much. They may be like the same height as a normal human being, but there will be some differences in them, that will throw throw some people off. Like when you look at them, you'll just be like, well, why does that person look so weird? You would know there's something different. I don't know how to explain it, but like for instance, the Bible says that the offsprings of the fallen angels and the humans that were giants, they had 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on their feet, on each foot. Okay, well, there's a group of people that have 6 fingers on each hand, but I don't know if they got 6 toes on each foot. They didn't go into that that detail, but I wouldn't be surprised if they do have 6 toes. Maybe that is one part of the the DNA that they could not fix. They probably couldn't fix that, but they maybe they was able to make them shorter and not as tall. Because they've been playing around with DNA for a long time. People just do some research. People who are abducted by aliens, they think these are just aliens from another planet, whenever they're demons that are abducting them. And these demons, these fallen angels, are playing around with human DNA. And they've been doing it for a long time. If you just research, you'll see how many people have been abducted. And then if you pay attention to what these people are saying, it's always about they're taking like sperm samples from them, or taking eggs from them. And there's even women who report that they were retaken again or abducted again, so they could go back and nurse their child that they have, that's a a hybrid child, like a Nephilim. And some of these people report seeing a room full of kids that look like they're humans, but they're not. And also these people are implanted with like chips in their bodies. And see, during the end times, the Antichrist will also be the rulers of the aliens, if you want to put it that way. But they're the fallen angels. They'll be this Antichrist will be their leader. Okay, so these fallen angels are all for the New World Order. They can't wait for the New World Order to take effect, because they are part of it, and they will also be introduced into society here soon, and they will no longer have to hide who they are. But they will still kind of hide it, because they won't say that they're fallen angels, and they're not going to say that they're Nephilims. They're not going to say that they're beings like that, because they don't want to prove the Bible to be correct. So they're going to call themselves anything but that. They're just going to say they're an alien life from another planet, and some people are going to fall for that deception, and not realizing that they're mentioned in the Bible, and the Bible warns that in the end times they will return, because they'll be just like the days of Noah's days and the days of Lot's days. And you just have to do a lot of reading and research to find out what was really going on. And you'll see that there was giants in the land, and the reason why God had to flood the world was because of these giants and these fallen angels, because they were ruining DNA. And the only ones that did not ruin their DNA was Noah and his family. They were the only ones that were pure, so that's why they were saved. Everyone else had to get wiped out off the planet, because their DNA was corrupt. And we couldn't continue with carrying that DNA on forward through history. because everyone would look probably creepy looking right now. So God put an end to it. And then God also put somewhere in the Bible, I can't remember where, but there's something about where they were put a restraint on them, fallen angels, like they have like a restraint where they weren't allowed to affect us humans for a while, and then that restraint will be loosened, and then loosened.
At the beginning of 1947, this was New York. Yet another expedition by the American explorer Richard Byrd arrived on Antarctic shores. It was a very strange expedition. Unlike his previous three, this one was completely financed by the US Navy. Operation High Jump. Now, this report comes from all Russian Navy scientists, etc., telling the story of what happened during the years throughout the Third Reich and the exploration of the Antarctic. Under the command of Admiral Byrd, there was a powerful military squadron. An aircraft carrier, 12 surface ships, 1 submarine, more than 20 airplanes and helicopters, and about 5,000 people on staff. A strange team for a scientific expedition. December the 2nd, 1946, before the start of his expedition, Admiral Byrd at a press conference said, "My expedition is military in nature." At the end of January 1947, full-scale aerial reconnaissance began surveying the Antarctic region of Queen Maud Land. Now, quoting from Acts 17:24, "God that made the world and all things therein, seeing that he is Lord of heaven and earth, dwelleth not in temples made with hands." The German people were very Jesus-loving people. In one statement, Hitler said, "You cannot be a German and Christian, as God is within the German people," a reference to his understanding the Christian churches had been usurped by the Jewish Talmud. He required a Germany that was focused on the present. The mind of the German, he said, had to be focused on the here and now, on the earth. And he was so right. In Isaiah 63, quoting, "And I will tread down the people in mine anger and make them drunk in my fury, and I will bring down their strength to the earth." Now, the strength of mankind, of course, is their mind. So the Lord himself is saying, "I will bring it back down to the earth, out of the heavenly realm, where people are so focused, back to earth to get things done." This is Hitler. He was dedicated to Jesus in the true meaning of Jesus dying on the cross at the hand of the demonic who had by then dominated the Western Christian world. He believed the ancient gigantic monuments were angelic built, and as such wanted to discover the secrets of creation and build the 1,000-year reign of Christ. His noble efforts were rewarded by the discoveries the Germans had uncovered. The German people was and are the chosen race, and is why the Allies burned alive 25 million civilians in firebombing even today, anything suggesting this is immediately removed by the Zionists, the devil in the so-called Christian world. When he took back Austria, he immediately obtained the spear allegedly used to pierce the heart of Jesus and actively searched for the legendary Holy Grail. The Holy Grail means holy blood genetically and associated with divine wisdom. He saw this as being the holy blood of Germany, and armed with these holy ideals was allowed by the angels, the Watchers, to enter their domain of Antarctica. With an analysis of ancient knowledge brought incredible results. This was the belief. For the Grail Cup isn't just a symbol of ancient knowledge, but also a centuries-old moral code. In Antarctic, Germany were shown wonders by the angels. The Germans described it as paradise on earth. As the war drew to an end, the Americans were able to seize the secret documents of advanced technology which mystified the Allies. Likewise, Russia seized documents, and they, like the Americans, rounded up as many German scientists they could find. But most of the top scientists had escaped. 100 submarines were unaccounted for. And where did they flee to? Antarctica. How many trips did they make until they vanished? The angels informed them the souls who died in Germany would reincarnate as saints after his second coming, and Christ would liberate Germany from the Zionists and introduce the plans of Hitler. They had to await the Christ, reborn on January the 11th, 1944 in Australia. Now, Americans, this is a Russian man speaking, have always been interested in the techno-magical legacy of Germany. Suddenly the inexplicable occurs. The expedition, designed to last 6 months, is quickly aborted after 2 months, leaving the Antarctic coast deserted. It was an actual retreat. The real facts, reliable evidence and sensational phenomenon in the film. It all went to plan in the first weeks. Tens of thousands of photos were taken. Suddenly, the inexplicable happened. The 6-month expedition terminated after only 2 months, fleeing the Antarctica coast. It was a real fast retreat. They lost a destroyer, almost half their carrier-based aircraft, dozens of sailors and officers. To commission investigation, members of the US Congress, Admiral Byrd said the following, quote, "In the event of another war, America can be attacked by an enemy that has the ability to fly from pole to pole with incredible speed." What made the Americans flee? In 1945, 18 months before Admiral Byrd's expedition began, 2 German submarines entered Mar del Plata, port in Argentina, surrendering to authorities. These were no ordinary submarines. They were from the so-called Führer convoy, a top-secret fleet fulfilling missions. Details have remained a secret till now. The submarine crews were reluctant to cooperate. Even so, the Americans learned a few things. The commander of U-boat U-530 spoke of his involvement in an operation codenamed Valkyrie 2. 2 weeks before the war's end, the U-boat U-530 left the quay, heading for the shores of Antarctica. On board of the submarine were passengers with faces covered in bandages, as well as Third Reich relics. The commander of another U-boat, U-977, Heinz Schaffer, later testified that he followed the same route. It was found that German submarines repeatedly followed the Antarctic route. But why go there? In 1820, it was discovered by 2 Russian explorers, Yelenchmersen and Lazarev. Somebody else can pronounce that much better than I can. Since then, this mysterious continent, bigger than Europe, continues to attract explorers like a magnet. However, the 10-metre high sheer icy shores made the continent impregnable for many years. For almost a century, Antarctica remained unknown. Only coastlines were marked on the map. Suddenly, this distant and useless icy continent aroused a strange interest in the Germans. Large funds were allocated for Antarctic study. 2 research expeditions were arranged. This happened just before the war was due to start. In January 1939, 2 catapult-controlled airplanes, the Passat and Boreas, took off from the deck of the Schwabenland. They began patrolling Queen